Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to another video with PRATHAM Test Prep. This is your host Sushila and I'm back with another video on Supreme Court's Handbook on Gender Stereotypes. So, the Supreme Court of India, and especially the Chief Justice of India, recently released a handbook on gender stereotypes, and this is a significant step towards promoting gender equality and combating issues and biases within the legal system. This handbook serves as a comprehensive guide for the judges and legal practitioners to recognize, understand, and rectify harmful gender stereotypes that often find their way into legal language and judgments. The Chief Justice of India emphasized that the handbook identifies and addresses stereotypes used unconsciously by courts with the intention of promoting awareness and fostering language that is free from harmful biases. Now, the handbook underscores the importance of using the right words and language in legal documents and judgments. It highlights that the language of a judge employs not only reflects their interpretation of the law but also their perception of the society itself. Even if the use of the stereotypes does not directly affect the case's outcome, such language can reinforce regressive notions that are at odds with constitutional principles and equal rights. Given that the words are the mediums through which the legal values are communicated, precise and unbiased language is crucial for upholding the integrity of the legal system. Now, the handbook in itself categorizes gender stereotypes on three broad categories. First, stereotypes based on so-called inherent characteristics of women. So how sometimes people say that women are supposed to be nurturing. Now that is an inherent characteristic, a stereotype based on that. Now, stereotype based on gender roles. For example, a housewife is not a correct term, a homemaker is a correct term, and there are a different way a man and a woman are seen basis on the basis of their gender roles. And concerning sex and sexual violence, so opinions such as that the clothes she was wearing, she was asking for it. Now again, this is again a kind of a gender stereotype, and time and again we have seen these stereotypes in our judgments. The handbook also in this aspect contrast common stereotypes with reality to highlight the disparity between them. It addresses the fallacies associated with the assumptions like women being overly emotional or incapable of rational thought. Additionally, the handbook also points out the instances where judges have perpetuated such stereotypes, citing specific cases where gender bias were evident. Now, the handbook seeks to replace such terms that reinforce stereotypes. Now, an example, if I would like to give it to you, in the case of Narendra Kumar versus State or Leelu Rajesh and another versus State of Haryana, in both these the words such as promiscuous character or open sexual attitude were used, which we seek to replace with more words which are not enforcing stereotypes. Then again, if in another notable instance, if we see in the case of Kriti and another versus Oriental Insurance Company Limited, where the Supreme Court substituted the term housewife with homemaker, emphasizing the need to calculate the notional income of the homemakers based on the principle of fairness, equality, and good conscience. Now let's talk about gender stereotyping in itself. And right before we get there, another thing that the Supreme Court, the handbook provides is it also provides a link for self-assessment tool, acknowledging the biases of that often lurk subconsciously due to individuals' backgrounds or experiences or upbringing. So that's there. Now, gender stereotyping, it is a practice of assign predetermined attributes, behaviors, or roles and expectations to individuals based solely on their genders. So how men as a stereotype, men are expected to go out and earn for the family, whereas the woman is supposed to stay at home and take care of the family. So these stereotypes create rigid and often unrealistic expectations for how individuals should behave, express themselves, and pursue their life goals. The impacts of the gender stereotyping, particularly on women, are numerous and far-reaching. Some of these gender stereotypes are educational barriers, limited career opportunities based on their gender-based violence, like we saw in the Manipur viral video case, and other instances, reinforcement of inequality. There is an impact on mental health, as well as there is a lack of authenticity due to gender stereotyping. Now moving on, the effort that has been taken by the Supreme Court, it reflects a broader global trend at the moment towards recognizing and addressing gender biases within the legal system. Similar efforts, if we see, to challenge the gender biases and promote equality have been observed in other countries as well. For instance, Women Court of Canada. This initiative involves a collective of female lawyers, academics, and activists who write shadow judgments on equality law. These judgments serve as an alternative perspective challenging gender biases that may be present in official court decision. Then another instance, another example for such an effort, a global like an effort put in the global trend, is Indian feminist judgment movement. So in Indian feminist judgment program in India, a project is known as Indian feminist judgment project. It focuses on reanalyzing judgments with a feminist critique by offering alternative judgments that are more sensitive to gender issues. This project aims to promote more inclusive and equitable legal approach. Alright, now let's focus on what exactly are the key features of the handbook. So the handbook is basically divided into 3 sections. First is regarding understanding the gender stereotypes. Secondly, identifying such gender stereotypes and addressing. So understanding, so if we talk about understanding a particular gender stereotype, the stereotype on the basis of inherent nature of somebody, or on their way of dressing up, or the way they want to conduct themselves, and judging a person on that is a gender, and that is how we'll understand a gender stereotype. Then once we have understood what exactly are gender stereotypes, we can identify them in separate situations. So for example, like we mentioned 2 cases in the beginning. Now, what those 2 cases show, we are identifying gender stereotypes, and with this particular handbook, we will be addressing the gender stereotypes as well. Now, if we talk about the book actually provides an extensive list of phrases and words, like some of them you can see on your screen also. So these provides an extensive list of phrases and words that perpetuate stereotypes and offers alternative language options also. So the ones in red are the stereotypes, and the ones given in black are the alternatives that can be used by us. So basically the aim is to replace anti-biased terms with more neutral and respectful language. For example, the handbook suggests replacing the term adulteress with woman who has engaged in sexual relationship outside marriage, the term affair with relationship outside of marriage. It also suggests using terms like woman instead of derogatory terms like seductress or a woman of loose morals. The handbook also introduces the term sex worker as a respectful alternative to the pejorative terms like prostitutes. It also encourages use of inclusive and accurate language across legal documents. The importance of the right choice of word by judges. So in the handbook itself, it's been highlighted that the importance of the right choice of words by judges is very important. The language a judge uses not only communicates their legal interpretation but also reflects their understanding of societal values. Even if stereotypes don't overtly influence the case outcomes, they can enforce ideas that contradict the principles of the Constitution. Language as the conveyor of legal values plays a critical role in the justice system, transmitting the intentions of lawmakers and the judges of the nation. The handbook, while giving an alternative to stereotype promoting language, it also identifies some of the gender-based assumptions or stereotypes that we might have. So here are some few examples. There are only 5 examples that we could choose. So these are the stereotypes that are there, but there were certain reality, like a comparison was drawn by Supreme Court, and On the other hand, the reality was also given. So let's talk about this particular thing, that the handbook actually challenges the entrenched gender-based assumptions such as the belief that women are overly emotional or incapable of rational thought. It underscores a person's gender does not determine their capacity of logical thinking and decision making. The handbook also highlights how stereotypes about women's appearance or sexual history can impact legal assessments, particularly in cases involving sexual violence, and may undermine the significance of consent. Now let's deal with these stereotypes one by one. So the first stereotypes, what it says is all women are physically weaker than all men. But in reality, that men and women, like we know, are both physiologically built different. It is not true that all women are physically weaker than all men. A person's strength does not depend solely on their gender, but also on factors such as their profession, genetics, nutrition, and physical activity. The second stereotype that we hear in our society again and again, that women are more nurturing and better suited for care for others. Now, people of all genders, in reality, we know that compassion is something that is not inherent. Women, a character, an inherent characteristic of a woman. People of all genders are equally suited of actually to the task of taking care of others. Women are often socially conditioned to take care of others from a young age, and many women are also forced to abandon their careers to take care of their children and the elderly. So saying that women are more nurturing or better suited is a stereotype again. The next stereotype, which we hear again and again, like I said, that she was asking for it. The way she was dressed, she was asking for it. So what the stereotype says, if a man touches a woman dressed in clothes that are not considered to be traditional without her consent, it's her fault. So basically, the way she is dressing, it's her fault. But wherein, like we all know, in reality, the clothing or attire of a woman neither indicates that she wishes to engage in sexual activities or relations, nor it is an invitation to touch her. Women are capable of verbally communicating with others, and their choice of clothing represents a form of self-expression only. And this form of self-expression is independent of questions of sexual relation. A man's clothing represents a man. If a man wears anything, there is never that assumption that, oh, he was asking for it. A man who touches a woman without her consent must not be permitted to take the defense that woman invited his touch by dressing in a certain way. So the next stereotype again that we'll be talking about is good women prefer death rather than being raped by a man. Now, this thought process, in reality, if we see, this thought process is a patriarchal and harmful belief that women should prefer death rather than being raped. Such beliefs may cause survivors and victims of such heinous crimes to consider suicide because they have faced such a offense. Lastly, the last stereotype is women who are sexually assaulted or raped by men cry incessantly and are depressed or suicidal, and if her behavior does not conform to, like if she is not crying incessantly or she's not depressed, then it is assumed that she's lying about having been raped. Now, what Supreme Court in reality, as a comparison to the stereotype, said that different people react differently to traumatic events. For example, the death of a parent may cause one person to cry publicly, whereas another person in a similar situation may not exhibit any emotion at all. Similarly, a woman's reaction to being sexually assaulted or raped by a man may vary based on her individual characteristics, and there is no correct or appropriate way in which a survivor or a victim is supposed to behave. Now, these were a few examples of the stereotypes that we took. There are many more in the handbook itself. Then if we see the handbook, actually how the handbook is helping us. What exactly is the purpose? It identifies a language that promotes the gender-based gender stereotypes, offering alternative words and phrases. It also identifies common reasoning patterns that are based on gender stereotypes, particularly about women, and discussing why they are wrong. So like the stereotypes that we studied right now, that women are weaker than men, or they are supposed to be good caretakers, that is not true. And thirdly, how this particular handbook helps us is it highlights binding decisions of the Supreme Court of India that have rejected these stereotypes and can be utilized by judges to dispel the gender stereotype. So, if in conclusion we see the recent release of this particular 30-page handbook, which is titled Combating Gender Stereotypes by the Supreme Court of India, might appear belated to some. So for some people it might appear belated given the modern context where gender bias should have been long eradicated. However, a closer examination of the handbook reveals a nuanced perspective. So the Chief Justice of India, D.I. Chandrachud, who's written the foreword, so in his foreword he acknowledges that legal discourse, including language used by lawyers and judges, often reflects outdated ideas rooted in patriarchal undertones. So in conclusion, if we would see, the Supreme Court's handbook on combating gender stereotypes represents a significant step towards creating a more inclusive and equitable legal environment by encouraging judges to use language that is sensitive, unbiased, respectful, and the handbook aims to reshape judicial discourse, promote gender equality, and uphold the principle of justice and constitutional values. So that was it from our side today. I hope you really enjoyed our content. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Have a great day.